Well, good morning. It's great to be here, and it's fantastic to see so many of you that are here to join us. It's really fun for me to get a chance to be with my team and to see our members. It's quite an experience. Before I get started, I wanted to take a few minutes to say thanks to our hosts, ACA Software, for their amazing hospitality. Meeting in another company's offices is really a special experience. We don't often get a chance to meet with other companies who are doing software development and see the whole process about how they serve their customers, how they create their software. And it's been a fantastic experience to actually be able to get to see your offices and meet your people. And I just so appreciate the opportunity to do that. We really appreciate the time that ACA has taken to tell us about the history of your company and to share your experiences in region with us. It's really been our pleasure to get to know you. And also I want to say a special thanks to Francesca, Loredana, and Carmelo for their assistance in handling all the details. We really couldn't have done all this without you guys, so thank you so much. And to get started this morning, I just want to say that the ITC is also celebrating an anniversary this year. We are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the ITC's inception, and the ITC was officially founded on July 27, 1999. And last year, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the first product release of IntelliCAD 98, and we reviewed the product history and what we accomplished in 25 major releases over the last 20 years. But today, this year, as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of the founding of the ITC, I want to review the history of the ITC and the Open Design Alliance too, and not just to tell about how it happened, but also, why did these organizations come into being, and what was the original purpose of these organizations, and to really try to examine our purpose, and is that really still valid for us today? So, it all started back in the early 90s when AutoCAD was just a generic CAD engine and development platform, but it was not yet servicing vertical markets. And by the mid-90s, Autodesk was looking for growth and found many opportunities in vertical markets that were developed by its own third-party markets. And the third-party developers helped to sell the platform, and now there were billions of drawing files that needed to be maintained, and Autodesk had complete control of the platform the developers used to build their solutions. And their platform provided the only viable tool to edit the billions of drawing files that their developers had used and users had created. And this monopoly allowed Autodesk to use totalitarian business practices to take the market from the third parties, forcing them off the development platform and pushing their dealer channel away from competitive products, while maintaining complete control of all the drawing data that had been generated for over a decade by third-party solutions. However, in 1994, Autodesk's largest third-party developer, Autodesk, felt that Autodesk was becoming a threat to their business, and they started an alternative CAD platform to read, write, and edit DWG files just in case they should need it. And this new platform would provide the foundation for both the Open Design Alliance and the IntelliCAD Technology Consortium. So in 1996, Autodesk expands into vertical markets, and it looks to acquire Autodesk to secure the AEC market. And Autodesk needs to divest themselves of their alternative CAD platform, IntelliCAD, and they look to unload IntelliCAD to its two creators, which was Boomerang Technologies in San Diego. 6 months later, Autodesk acquires Autodesk, and during the acquisition, Autodesk tries to kill the sale of IntelliCAD, but the U.S. Federal Trade Commission steps in. Autodesk is seen as a CAD monopoly, and their attempt to block the sale of IntelliCAD is anti-competitive. So Autodesk is forced to let Boomerang Technologies acquire IntelliCAD. Autodesk was right to be concerned about Autodesk's intentions, but since they were acquired, they would be assimilated rather than being crushed by Autodesk's anti-competitive practices. However, when Autodesk was acquired, it sent shockwaves through the entire CAD industry as all other AEC developers suddenly became competitors to Autodesk. These companies spent years developing the AEC market for AutoCAD, and now Autodesk would swoop in, acquire one of the AEC third-party companies, and kick all other AEC developers to the curb. Once the third-party developers were denied access to the platform, they had no alternative development platform to access and edit the DWG data their solutions had created for over the last decade. And this was the first mature vertical market developed by third-party developers that Autodesk would assimilate, but there would be many more. 2 months later, Visio Corporation acquires Boomerang Technology and gains ownership of IntelliCAD. And this is really a smart acquisition by Visio because at the time, there were already billions of DWG files and there was only one viable product for editing them, AutoCAD. And AutoCAD users were already pretty grumpy with Autodesk pricing, and their third-party developers needed an alternative platform, and IntelliCAD was really pretty well received. 30 days later, Autodesk and Sofdesk settled with the Federal Trade Commission, and when Autodesk lost their case with the FTC, this was a major benefit for Visio, as IntelliCAD was now under the protection of the FTC, and Autodesk could not further pursue any action against IntelliCAD for at least 10 years. And this was the kind of protection that was needed as Visio moved forward with their plans. And now that the 800-pound gorilla, Autodesk, was really caged by the ITC, Visio looked for a way to poke it with a stick. Then in January 1998, Visio acquires Marcom, and this is the company that created AutoDirect. AutoDirect was a set of libraries to read and write the DWG files. And remember, this was a core piece of technology used by IntelliCAD to read and write DWG files. This was the key to DWG compatibility in IntelliCAD, and these would be the libraries that would become the foundation of the Open Design Alliance. Then 30 days later, Visio forms a nonprofit cooperative called the Open Design Alliance and gives them a perpetual license to the AutoDirect libraries. So this is kind of an important part of our story because Visio takes the family jewels. This is the core DWG read-write libraries that are crucial to its future success, and it spins it out into an open source cooperative to unleash DWG interoperability to the whole world. And this is seriously poking the 800-pound gorilla with a stick. This is really a serious issue for Autodesk. With so many DWG alternatives today that are available, it's hard for us really to imagine the whole market pressures that would bring these 14 companies together to work together during this time. Imagine 14 critical competitors working together to solve and create a DWG editor just so they can compete against Autodesk. So how did the Visio choose to call this an alliance? Let's see, we have a small group of rebel developers aligning forces to create CAD clones to fight a corporation seizing a monopoly of all DWG data. And of course, this group had to be called the Alliance because they're fighting for the freedom of CAD data everywhere. And the ODA was really seen as a new hope for open DWG access for both CAD developers and users alike. And these rebel competitors, they knew that the only way that they were going to move forward was to work together, or they all faced being crushed by the wheels of the Autodesk monopoly. Then 7 months later, Visio announces that it's spun out IntelliCAD into a nonprofit consortium similar to the Open Design Alliance called the IntelliCAD Technology Consortium, or the ITC. And at the time, I was a Visio insider, and I was working on IntelliCAD, and this came as a complete surprise to me, and really all of us that were on the team, because Visio had invested over $25 million in IntelliCAD at that time, and there were several acquisitions as well on top of that, and there were well over 200 man-years of development that went into IntelliCAD. And now they spin IntelliCAD out into an open consortium, the ITC, and spin down development on IntelliCAD and push everyone over to the Visio diagramming product instead. And it really was a shock, but the good news for us is that the thoughtful work that was done to form the Open Design Alliance with the bylaws and the corporate infrastructure was all duplicated for the IntelliCAD Technology Consortium. So we were two sister open source consortiums, one for the core read-write libraries and one for the user interface. And then when you put the two together, you had a powerful solution that would really give you a full DWG editor. So what is our purpose? Today, I think most of us focus really on the mission of what the ODA or the ITC provides. But I think it's really important for us to look to our past and remember the purpose or the why, the reasons why the ODA and the ITC were created. So if you look at, we are a nonprofit, so we're not trying to make profit for our shareholders. We don't create any end user products at all. So really, what is our purpose? And the main purpose for the creation of these companies was to free millions of users and billions of engineering data files from a monopoly by working cooperatively to create, maintain, and license OpenCAD file exchange data and create editing technology for our members. And then really, the third item there, which is also extremely important, was to document the exchange formats because we're open source, protect the resulting intellectual property, and to ensure the continued open access for future generations. The ITC's IntelliCAD showed how the ODA read-write libraries could be used to create a competitive CAD engine development platform. I think really that this is the purpose that compelled competitive companies to join these cooperatives and work together to further their missions. So the ODA and the ITC are cooperatives or consortiums. So what is a cooperative and why does it matter? So what is a cooperative? It's an autonomous association of entities united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. It's an interesting move. Rather than taking on the 800-pound gorilla alone, Visio created cooperatives to use a democratic capitalism to fight the totalitarian capitalism used by Autodesk. Autodesk used its monopoly to seize absolute control over the development platform and all the data it created. Then it excluded anyone it desired as it overtook new markets. Conversely, the cooperatives would welcome all competitors to join their alliance in the creation of an open exchange platform in CAD Editor, and it's democratically controlled by its members. Often people think of a cooperative as some kind of socialist experiment, but really, it's democratic capitalism at its best. So how does the business model work with the cooperatives? Let's take a look at the cooperative business model more closely, as our founders' thoughtful formation of the ODA and ITC gave us the protection and the framework we needed to fulfill our missions. We are both nonprofits, so there are no shareholders demanding profits, only members directing our missions, and this keeps us on task creating core technology for our members, unlike other platforms that seek to gain profits in markets that were created by their partners. The bylaws are set up so that it's very difficult for any single entity to acquire or kill the cooperatives, as an acquisition requires 80% approval of all members. In addition, the bylaws were set up to provide a perpetual license to all active commercial or founding members should the cooperative be dissolved. This is kind of a poison pill that's in our bylaws that discourages any company from attacking us, as it would simply spread the source and compound the problem further. Both cooperatives are completely dependent on our members for funding and direction. And since we can only gain revenue from membership fees, revenue can only grow with the membership. So this does limit our growth, but it also restricts us to stay in our lane rather than moving into our partners' competing markets like other for-profit CAD engines do. So what if? What if the FTC denied Autodesk protection? And what if Visio Corporation did not buy IntelliCAD? What if Visio never spun out ODA and ITC as cooperatives? What if there was no protection in our bylaws and our business model? Where would it be today? Really, I don't know where we'd be, but obviously we wouldn't be here. And many of these companies wouldn't be here as well. So if you take a look at all the different companies, many of these companies wouldn't be here. The ITC and ODA created a foundation that launched an entire industry of DWG editors, viewers, and tools, fulfilling their purpose to provide open exchange for billions of engineering data files and millions of users. And without that foundation, how many of these companies do you think would have ever been able to be started or would have survived the crush of the Autodesk monopoly? Without the united resources to create the exchange platform, would any of these DWG alternatives be available today? With so many viable alternatives on the market today, so is our original purpose to free engineering data still valid? Earlier we discussed how the cooperative is a model of democratic capitalism, and we reviewed our business model, and you've seen what that looks like, but alternatively, Autodesk and AutoCAD is an example of totalitarian capitalism, so let's take a look at what that looks like. So totalitarian capitalism is where a company can monopolize by seizing absolute control over fundamental resources and then exclude anyone it desires. The Sofdesk acquisition was just the start for Autodesk. Over the last 20 years, Autodesk acquired or created solutions in every vertical space where third parties had created a solid market, over 200 products today. And once a new market was developed, Autodesk would swoop in to assimilate that market and reap the profits, forcing out their third-party developers who now were their competitors. And how do you force out competition? Well, it's really easy to do that when they built their entire business on your platform. Today, Autodesk is looking for any avenue to increase revenue and keep Wall Street happy, pushing users into subscriptions, taking large corporate accounts from dealers, forcing dealers to sell their product suites, and forbidding dealers from selling competitive products. With users on automatic subscription updates, it makes it really difficult for third parties to keep their solutions running, especially when Autodesk removes them from their developer network program. And even still, when they can't even compete technically, they can still cause problems for developers by simply throwing their solutions into their product platform for free, taking market share from their partners. As you can see here, Autodesk included 7 combined tool sets into AutoCAD for free. These products were all sold separately, and any of the third-party developers who were selling these products were instantly hurt by this anti-competitive action by Autodesk. And these anti-competitive behaviors, they stifle innovation and kill competition. And after 20 years of anti-competitive behavior from Autodesk, people are finally starting to understand the benefits of our cooperative business model. However, even though there are still some great, today we have great IntelliCAD-based alternatives, Autodesk still holds the lead position by a huge margin. So check out this Google Trends chart. AutoCAD still dominates. Here you can see this flat line that's on the bottom here. That is the major products that are based on IntelliCAD. So in terms of Google Trend, AutoCAD is still just killing us. So yes, the original purpose to free CAD data from monopoly still holds true today. However, it's even more important as we face the future. So the future of CAD data, I believe, is in digital platforms. And so what is a digital platform? A digital platform, it facilitates exchanges between 2 or more independent groups. It enhances collaboration through data sharing, and the value for it will grow as more members participate. And it fosters trust through, you have to, on your digital platform, foster trust through governance of participation and IP ownership. That's really one of the critical aspects of it. So let's take a look at a couple of different CAD platforms, digital platforms that are growing out there today. One of these new digital platforms is Onshape. And Onshape is a full cloud mechanical design application and creates and saves all data in the cloud in a relational database. There's no files, there's no copies of files. It's only in one place and it's in the cloud. In this case, if you want to edit, visualize, you want to print it, you have to do it in the cloud. And because you have to do it in the cloud, and you have to work through Onshape to do that. So in this scenario, who owns the design data? So really it's Onshape who owns the design data, not necessarily the user. More users will create more and more data that is only accessible through Onshape. And once the data is captive, they could present ads advertising their own services. They can block competition, competitive services if they see they are constantly the gatekeepers for this data. And I'm not saying that they'll do this, I'm just saying that the opportunity there is there for them to do that. Another digital platform that's in development now is Autodesk's Quantum. So Autodesk is developing this new digital platform called Quantum, and it offers implicit collaboration across multiple seemingly unrelated applications in either synchronous or asynchronous modes. And it looks like it's a brilliant technology that offers several ways to collaborate in model creation and disbursement. And you can set up data contracts, for example, for sharing various levels of model details. However, my main concern is how can a serial monopolist create a trusted digital platform? Do we trust Autodesk to create this platform for us? Remember, one of the key descriptions of a digital platform is to foster trust through governance of participation and IP ownership. And Autodesk does not have a good history of earning our trust. So let's examine a few other digital platforms and review why we should have trust issues when it comes to using digital platforms. So here's, I could have had a list here of 7 or 8 different, but I've just picked 4. We have Facebook, Equifax, Amazon sales platform, and the Google YouTube video sharing platform. So here's some digital platforms we're all familiar with, and these are powerful platforms that many of us use every day. So let's look at how they've breached our trust by abusing the power that these platforms provide. So Facebook. Okay, we all know about the Facebook breaches exposing hundreds of millions of users' data. But in the case of Facebook, they're fined $5 billion, which is nothing. That's about a month of profit for them. And so they've made no actions to increase their security or to make any changes because $5 billion isn't enough money. It has no effect whatsoever really on their bottom line. Equifax. So Equifax also had a major data breach. 150 million users were affected by their data breach. But the answer to their data breach was to use the data that they had to further gain revenue from these users. Instead of helping them with their security problems, they used this crisis to sell them additional security software. The first 12 months were free, of course, but then it automatically started billing them after that 12 months. And this is really abuse of the power of their platform. This is another one that's kind of disturbing, this one specifically for me. So here we have Amazon, who has their sales platform. And it's critical that the sales platform is really ubiquitous. It's how everyone now needs to be able to sell their products through Amazon. And so what does Amazon do? They stop selling the Google Nest smart home devices. And so what they've done is they've identified a competitor and they said, hey, you can't use our platform. We're going to block you from selling your products because they compete with us. And this is a serious violation of our user trust for this platform. When we go to use this platform, we want to be able to have a choice of the products that we want to buy. So what happened in response? Well, Google used their platform to get back at Amazon. They went into the YouTube and said, hey, Amazon's devices that we're competing with won't be able to display and view the YouTube videos. And most people just think of this as business as usual, competitors kind of fighting against one another. But I see this, it's a huge breach of trust for both of these platforms. However entertaining it is for us to see them fighting each other, what if both companies work together? Let's say, for example, there was a new company that came out with new devices, and both Google and Amazon decided, hey, we don't want to compete with them, so we're not going to let them see YouTube or be able to sell those products on Amazon. And for some reason, we accept this type of behavior from these digital companies. But let's just use a different analogy, for example. Let's say, for example, the U.S. Postal Service said, hey, you know what? We don't like UPS or Federal Express. They're competing with us, so we're not going to deliver their mail. This is the kind of stuff that's happening in the digital world, and we just accept it. So this example, it illustrates that our purpose to free CAD data is still valid. As these new CAD digital platforms evolve, we need to provide trusted access to these platforms. Or we need to develop our own digital platform or find a partner who shares our values. We already know that Autodesk does not share our values and does not deserve our trust. As we move forward into the next 20 years, we need to remember these lessons and stay true to our purpose and our values on which our companies were founded. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up my presentation, but I have a couple of additional points that I hope you'll take away from my blatherings this morning, okay? So first off, I want to say if you work for the ODA or the ITC, I want you to remember who you are, that you are a rebel, and you're part of an alliance that is creating tools to free engineering data from a monopoly. Don't forget your purpose. Millions of users and billions of engineering data files look to you for their freedom. Don't disappoint them. The work's not easy, but it's rewarding. Second, I want to say that we've made some strides, but we're not nearly done yet. Autodesk is still the 800-pound gorilla, and they are doing much more than all the rest of us combined. Remember who the real competitor is. Third, we're a cooperative. Let's cooperate, please. A rising tide will lift all boats. Fourth, do the right thing. Rise above this corporate business as usual and don't abuse the power that we have. Keep true to our purpose and be inclusive to all. And last, keep vigilant because new technologies are always emerging. So that's my message for you today. Thank you.